Hello, I'm Jyotika. Welcome to Excelling Psychology. In today's class, we will look at a predicted paper for Section C Schizophrenia, Paper 3, upcoming AQA A Level Psychology exam. This lesson should be useful to Oxford International AQA students also, not as a predicted paper, but just for revising your schizophrenia unit and for practice and answer writing strategies. I'm an international tutor of psychology, tutoring students for AQA and Oxford AQA since 9+ years. So, if you're interested in scheduling your classes with me, or if you have any assignment related or paper correction related work, my contact details are available in the description box and pinned comment below. Also, if you're interested in many more such videos for different papers, different types of answer writing, definitely you can check out the AQA playlist on my channel. And if you're on my AQA channel, you can look at the recent videos here. In today's lesson, my intention is to teach you how to write the answers, how to understand where marks are being allotted and what strategy to adopt. This is a predicted paper. It is not a guaranteed paper, otherwise it wouldn't be called predicted. So I cannot tell you with 100% certainty that these are only going to be the questions that will be asked. So you can take it in the spirit of these are the topics you need to prioritize and this is how you need to write your answers. So it's more like a good practice before you can write your final paper. So the disclaimer here is that although you need to focus more on these topics, you need to do everything else that comes under schizophrenia. Okay, schizophrenia is a very popular choice. I think I have not come across any school yet amongst the students whom I have tutored which has not taken this topic for the paper. And of course, in the Oxford International curriculum, it is compulsory. So, definitely a very important topic, very scoring also. It's very straightforward. Okay, let's begin with the first predicted question. I'll just read it out. This one is from the classification of schizophrenia. There's been a lot in the past papers from the reliability and validity of classification. Full length answers have been asked from there. That is why the expectation is that this time it will go into a shorter question. Okay, the situation given here is Veronica has suffered from schizophrenia for many years. She often believes that her family members are plotting against her, even though evidence suggests they are very supportive. She reports that she hears voices that keep telling her that she must escape from home as they are in severe danger. Consequently, Veronica has tried to run away on a number of occasions. However, more recently, she has started to shut herself in her room and has become very withdrawn. Outline how schizophrenia is classified. Refer to Veronica's symptoms as part of your answer. Okay, the first part of the question is about outline. So that is definitely AO1. Okay, so the outline command term is for AO1. And the next part asks you to refer to Veronica's symptoms. So that is the AO2 part. You can take it as AO1 is for 2 marks. AO2 is for 2 marks. Although for these type of situation questions which have lesser marks, I feel the focus you need to keep is less on the assessment objectives and more on the contextualization of the points you give. Now, for this type of a question, definitely a student would ask me that the classification of schizophrenia is a very broad topic. Like there's a lot covered under that. So, exactly what am I to give? It's a very simple answer whenever you have a situation given to you, whatever topic is asked, like in this case, classification. You just have to give, even in AO1, what is relevant to the situation given. So, how I would suggest going about this type of a question is before you start answering anything, like before you finalize what to cover for AO1 and AO2, just mentally keep marking, like I'm marking it on the question, but in the same way, mentally, you can keep marking which symptoms of Veronica are coming across from this situation. Because when it comes to classification, you know it is about the symptoms of schizophrenia. They are used to classify the disorder. So, first, just identify which symptoms Veronica is having. She believes her family members are plotting against her, which clearly indicates that she has delusions, because this is a false belief that she's having. Clearly, they've mentioned this is not really the case. It's a delusion of persecution. See, even if you just say delusion, that's fine. But if you've learned the types of delusion, it's a good idea to indicate that this is delusion of persecution. Besides that, she hears voices. We know now hearing voices comes under auditory hallucinations. Right? So that is one more symptom she's showing. And then finally, we see she has started to shut herself in a room and become very withdrawn. So here we are seeing a negative symptom also, which is social withdrawal. So whenever you have this question in your mind, okay, a broad topic is given and they're asking me to outline. Now, what should I outline? Once you see in the situation what all is relevant, it becomes easy for you to decide, okay, I need to cover these type of symptoms. Like in this case, two positive symptoms which Veronica is showing and one negative symptom which she's shown. Now the question is how to write the answer. As always, I'll make an outline like I'm doing for all the predicted videos. So I'll just put down some bullet points of what you need to cover. If you're interested in writing full-fledged answers, like you need guidance for that, I've done that in many past videos. In these videos, I'm not doing it because I want to brainstorm more with you rather than spend all the time in writing full-fledged answers. So as I've mentioned, you can go to some of my past videos where I've written complete answers and you can see how to write a proper answer from there. Okay, for this one, for AO1 outlining, definitely you can begin by mentioning a classification system like the DSM or the ICD, whichever one you have learned. For example, if you've learned about the DSM, you could suggest that the DSM looks out for at least one core symptom and two core symptoms in less clear cut cases, which should persist for at least a month before diagnosis is given. So, something like that you can put down. But as I told you, and after all, they have asked how it is classified. So, definitely a DSM or ICD, one of the systems, is referred to while doing the classification. But as I told you, I feel the answer needs to be very focused. So even I am going to mention the DSM or ICD. It's just that I'm not going to get into the details of it. I would say that to directly address the question, outline how it's classified. Schizophrenia is classified by, we can say, investigating, or you could also say by clinically interviewing for core symptoms, that is positive and negative symptoms, of a potential patient, and then validating it against the criteria given in the ICD or DSM. I am not going into what criteria is given in ICD or DSM because there's too many criteria that are given. Not everything is relevant to this situation. So for a 4 marker, that is not how much I will be able to cover. So my answer for the outline, how it is classified, is going to be this. Plus, for one more point of AO1, I will just explain what are positive and negative symptoms. Positive symptoms are excesses of behaviors. As we know, they are abnormalities of behavior, anything excessive compared to what a normal or neurotypical individual does. By the same token, negative symptoms are absences of regular behavior. So, compared to what a normal individual does, a schizophrenic person tends to show a deficit of those behaviors. Now, coming to the AO2 part, I have just defined what positive negative symptoms are. Before answering, I marked out in the situation what are Veronica's positive and negative symptoms. So now I am ready to answer the latter part of the question, which is refer to Veronica's symptoms as part of your answer. So what I would say is, Veronica is showing positive symptoms of delusions of persecution. Of course, it is AO2. I cannot emphasize enough how much you need to contextualize. So, if you just say delusion of persecution, she's showing and leave it, which is what many students do, you're not getting any credit. How do you know that she's showing delusion of persecution? Which part of the scenario given is telling you that? So, you need to use wording from the scenario to explain. A simple way, like, is to think of because. So, she's showing delusion of persecution because, bring up the relevant material from the text to indicate that that is telling us she's showing persecution. So Veronica is showing delusion of persecution because she believes her family members are plotting against her, even when evidence contradicts this. In the same point only, I would suggest that she's also showing the positive symptom of auditory hallucinations because she hears voices that tell her that she must escape from danger. Okay, and then coming to negative symptoms which Veronica is showing. They've given us only one which she's showing, which is social withdrawal. She's showing social withdrawal because, or how do I know she's showing withdrawal? Because they have mentioned that she is she shut herself in the room recently and she has become very withdrawn. Now, just to give it a good finishing and link it back to classification, because I've spoken a lot about Veronica at this point. So she would get classified as having schizophrenia because she is meeting those symptoms which are specified in ICD or DSM. The question is, how is schizophrenia classified? So using Veronica's example, I can say for patients like her, the visibility of those core symptoms indicate that she meets classification criteria of DSM or ICD, and that is how she will be classified. Okay, so that is for the 4-marker question. As I told you, schizophrenia is the simple option, so I'm sure this is not a big deal to write about. If you need to refer to these answers in future, I will upload them as a free PDF download document on my website. So I will link that in the description box and pinned comment below. The next question is for 4 marks again. This is a fully AO1 question because you can see it's entirely outline and there's no stem given at all. So it becomes very apparent. Outline one research study that has investigated the role of genetics in schizophrenia. Okay, I'm very sure for this, the most popular answer is going to be the Gottesman and Shields study. And even I strongly recommend you write about that studies. I will brainstorm and tell you about other possible studies also, depending on which reference source you are using. But before that, one thing I want to tell you about, like students would often ask me, in AQA especially, this word research is used a lot in questions, like discuss research or outline research. Do we have to give studies? See, if they're just telling you outline or discuss research, then AQA has the policy of you can either give a theory or a study. Like research does not mean always study. So they're not insisting you give some specific research study. But in this question, what is happening? They're telling you outline a research study. They have really emphasized, like especially they have mentioned you have to give a study. In this case, you cannot give a theory. So if you give a general theory of, say, some candidate gene is there which creates a vulnerability for depression, for schizophrenia, that will not count in this case because they do want a specific study, meaning some investigation which has been done by particular researchers, aim, procedure, results, conclusion. In that format, they want you to give a study. Okay, so just keep it in mind. In the paper there could be alternatively questions about research rather than research study. There you're free to give any theory also, so just read the question very carefully. Any study that is asked, unless they emphasize on, like, outline the procedure of the study or outline the results of the study, which they haven't done in this case, you have to give aim, procedure, results, conclusion. Okay, so make sure you give all of this, because what happens is mostly students learn studies from evaluation point of view, and in evaluation it is always strongly recommended that you give uh, just the results of the study. You don't need to give the procedure, which makes sense, because when you're evaluating a theory or some research, and say you're giving a supporting study, the results count for the most. Like, we're not interested in how the study was done, because we're not evaluating the study at that point, rather whether evidence for that theory is found in the study's results. But here what is happening, they're not asking you for evaluating the any other theory in light of this study, so you don't have to give only the results. Don't make the mistake of giving only the results of the study. Your I'm sure you have memorized concordance rates, inheritance rates of heritability, like of whichever study you have done. So definitely that is what is coming to your mind when you read this question. Like, let me suggest, say for example, the concordance rates are like 0.48 and zero point 0.7 for MZ and DZ twins respectively. That's fine. But if you're going to give only the results, you're not going to score full 4 marks. You also need to summarize the other important elements of the study. So, just to reiterate, unless they tell you give the results or outline the results of the study, you have to make sure to give all sections of the study. More or less weightage is possible to any section, but you cannot omit any. For example, you cannot omit the procedure and just give the results. Now, considering which possible studies are there, like I said, number one choice would be Gottesman and Shields. So, definitely. Okay, also, this has happened in class practice, that's why I'm mentioning. Many students, because they do so much of depression, what comes to their mind whenever they see genetic study is Kendler, or for some students even Caspi et al. Those are depression studies, they are not schizophrenia studies. So when you're planning for this answer, just double check that you're not giving for some other disorder instead of schizophrenia, the studies. Okay, so one possibility is Gottesman and Shields. I'm sure most of you have done the Tierney study. Lots of students ask me, can we give Tierney study for this one? I'm sorry, I've not written correctly. It's Tierney, which is the diathesis stress study, like interaction between genes and environment. Yes, you can give it. It counts as a genetic study. It does have a genetic component to it. So I think after Gottesman and Shields, in my view, this is going to be the most preferred one. Besides that, there are many studies. Actually, there are just too many resources, too many textbooks. So which one you have learned, I don't know, but I can just tell you which is coming to my mind. A lot of adoption and family studies are there in this area. So the other one which I can think of is uh, there was this meta-analysis study. Yeah, one more thing now brings to my mind, because I'm not able to recall the name of the researcher. The name of the researcher is not very critical. When it comes to classic studies, like I've mentioned, Gottesman and Shields and all, you remember their names. If you remember, definitely write it. Don't omit it. But if you don't, even if you don't remember for the classic studies, as long as you summarize effectively, in the sense you give something unique about the procedure, results and all, it's fine. You don't need to name the researchers. I just remembered the name of the researcher who did the meta-analysis study, Joseph. Joseph et al. Had done this meta-analytic family study. Like, they had reviewed many family studies and come up with heritability rates for different degrees of relatives. So definitely you could give that one if you have learned that one. Uh, Besides that, okay, I'm not able to remember again, but like the names of the researchers, but any meta-analytic study, like one which I've just said is the family studies, different degree of relatives, like right from parent child to real siblings to twins to aunts and nieces, uncles and nephews, those type of comparisons have been made. Adoption studies, like I told you, I can't bring to mind, but that very famous study, hopefully you remember the name of the researcher, in which children whose biological mothers had schizophrenia had been sent for adoption, and then and some of them remained with their mothers only. So then the comparison was drawn, like a natural experiment was done comparing those children who'd been adopted prospectively, how many of them developed schizophrenia, and those children who stayed with their mothers, how many of them developed schizophrenia, while controlling for factors like any stress in the adoptive environment. And what they found is those whose mothers had schizophrenia were more likely to develop the disorder regardless of the adoptive family's environment. Very strong evidence for heritability of schizophrenia. So I'm not able to remember the name, very famous research, you could give that one. I'm not writing that one, but what you must have noticed when I just summarized it is, although I was not able to name the researcher, I could outline the procedure very distinctively, like how adoption was done and then how they compared those like with biological mothers and staying with them and those with adopted mothers. If you summarize this way, you get marks, full marks, despite not naming the researcher. But if you just summarize as some adoption study was done, those children who had by birth a mother who had schizophrenia were more likely to develop schizophrenia. Then you don't get marks, too many marks, you get one or two because the procedure is skipped. And like what I mentioned earlier, you're not talking about natural experiment comparisons being drawn, control for adoptive environment. Like you're giving nothing about the procedure of the study, you're just jumping to the results. There, then students feel I lost marks because I did not name the researcher. That's not the case. They haven't cut your marks because you didn't name the researcher, they've cut it because you've not effectively summarized the procedure. So make sure you're doing it correctly. Okay, I will take Gottesman and Shields because, as I said, that's the most popular one, and I do find it the most effective one. In the paper, do not make different sections because we always practice research studies this way, aim, procedure, and all. Many students try to write that way in the paper. Write in continuous paragraph format. Aim of Gottesman and Shields was to establish concordance rates between twins with different zygosticity, to investigate the heritability or genetic inheritance of schizophrenia. Procedure was simple. They took a number of, yeah, of course, I will name the researchers in the beginning because I do remember the name. Procedure was simple. They took several pairs of monozygotic twins and dizygotic twins. And it was through a natural experiment that they were compared. And just to explain in a line what is establishing concordance, it was counting in how many pairs of twins was it that if one of the twins had schizophrenia, the other one also had the same condition. So we can say calculated number of pairs in each type of twin how many such pairs were there in which both the twins had schizophrenia. You do not need to get into the logic of doing twin studies, like why they compare monozygotic and dizygotic twins, how that helps to control for the environment and all. That much detail is not required, just for 4 marks, and it's not about evaluation. But you do need to give the procedure. Now you'll see I have not given every detail of the procedure because it is for 4 marks. So I do not need to give how many number of monozygotic and dizygotic twin pairs were there, or over how many years they had been recruited. Those type of specific details are not required. See, this is not a proper case study, Gottesman and Shields. So they have not asked from that point of view. Secondly, for 4 marks, it does not justify also. If it was something like a full essay, 6 mark only on a key study, then I would give something of that sort. Like, say, a study would come on, say, Zimbardo or Ash or Milgram, which are the key studies in the syllabus. Then I would have given those details. Here, it's not required. But as I mentioned earlier, it does not mean that we skip the procedure altogether. These are considered to be secondary details. How many participants are there, or in which years the research was done, how long it was done. It is more important to specify exactly what task is being done in the study. In this case, there's no task. Like, the twins don't have to do anything. It's the researchers who are doing the task of assessing them for schizophrenia. How they are assessing them? By establishing concordance rates. So that is what I mentioned, the procedure. Like, that is primary. The rest of the details are secondary. So I've not included those. Now, of course, the results are the most important thing, but then we've come to it eventually. They establish concordance rates for monozygotic twins as 48%. In some sources, you would find that they've established it as 42%. Gottesman and Shields have done many studies, so depends which one you have learned. In different sources, different ones have been summarized. So perhaps you have come across that one in which the concordance rate was established as 42%. Definitely you can, source the one which you have studied. You don't need to give the year for it, but it's perfectly acceptable. So the one which I am talking about here, they had established a concordance rate of 48% in that one for monozygotic twins. Concordance rates can be suggested as percentage or proportion, whatever is your preference, both are right. Dizygotic twins, for them it was established as 7%. Again, I think in some sources it is either 11%, in some it's 9%. Depends again which study you're referring to. The one which I'm referring to, in that it was 48% for MZ, and in that only it was 7% for dizygotic. I cannot take for MZ from a different source and DZ from a different source. That is not acceptable. Conclusion, again, very important, which many students skip. Conclusion is not the same as results. Results just give the concordance rates. Conclusion means how do we interpret this? What are we understanding from this? The question is about the role of genetics in schizophrenia. So with the help of the conclusion, we'll be able to answer that. So from the study, what are we understanding? What is the role of genes in schizophrenia? Genes play a strong role in schizophrenia, in inheritance of it. Given that for monozygotic twins, the concordance rates are much higher than dizygotic twins, but they are not the only factor responsible, otherwise the concordance rate should have been 100%. So environmental factors also contribute. Right? Because what have they asked you? Role of genes in schizophrenia. So if you just leave it as genes contribute to the disorder, it sounds as if genes are the only thing that contribute, whereas the concordance rate is starkly showing that that's not the case. There's something else also that is contributing. So although that is not investigated, like what are the other factors, but the indication is there. So in the conclusion, we should be very clear about that there is a strong role. After all, monozygotic, the concordance rates are many times higher than in dizygotic, but not 100%. You must emphasize on that. So this is how you can effectively summarize a research study. If you take any other study, like say Tierney, the conclusions would be similar. Even they have found that genetics just creates vulnerability. The rest of the contribution comes from the environment. So the specific details that you give of the study will be different, but conclusion always comes around this when it comes to genetic explanation. Now coming to the last question, which is expectedly a 16 marker from the interactionist approach, because over the years what has happened, as I mentioned earlier, reliability, validity has been asked a lot. Some of the explanations have also been asked, drug therapy has also been asked. What has not been asked yet, and which is very important, is the interactionist approach. Never been asked for an essay. So this time there is a strong chance of it coming up. I also believe that if it does come up, very easy to score on this one. Like, this is one of the easier topics in schizophrenia, because interactionist approach revolves entirely around the diathesis stress model, which is very simple to understand. Okay, as always, like I know by now you must be knowing the 16 markers, but those who still don't know, they have a breakup of EO1 for 6 marks and EO3 for 10 marks. Unless there's a STEM. In this case, there's no STEM. So definitely this one is qualifying for EO1 6 and EO3 10. It's a discuss command term. Many students confuse it either with evaluate, which means only EO3, or outline, which means only EO1. Discuss is a combination command term, which means you have to do both, give EO1 and EO3. Nothing much like else to discuss in this. Very quick advice, like which is always given. For AO1, make sure to use good terminology. Like just now I mentioned diathesis stress model. So make sure to use that term diathesis stress. Don't just keep on giving general terms like genetic risk, though that is good terminology, but then there's a proper term for it, diathesis. So mention that. And always, yes, if you want to score in the highest mark band, you want to get 16 out of 16. Even for a 16 mark section, 6 mark section of AO1, it is desirable to give some supporting study. So I will include ternary in the 6 marker part itself. And in fact, because I'm doing ternary now, I didn't do it in the last question. So here, if you intend to use it in the last question, you can do that for the last one and this one. You'll get an idea of the ternary study, and then you could answer the previous one also using it. So my suggestions for AO1: use good terminology, summarize some relevant study, be focused, don't stray away from interactionist. When it comes to interactionist, the tendency is to get into, okay, diathesis is there, so let me give the whole genetic explanation, let me give full Gottesman and Shields adoption studies. That is not what is being asked in interactionist. Please don't do that. Focus on diathesis stress models and studies which have been done specifically on the diathesis stress model, not in isolation for genetic explanation or for the stressors part. Okay, so stay focused on the question. That's another advice. And of course, there's a lot that you can cover in interactions besides diathesis stress. I think in different sources there are also things like family. I'm not able to think of it right now, but family environment, they don't use the term diathesis stress. Family environment combines with possible brain damage and all in childhood. Such things, like, don't go into lengthy explanations of them. Give them as examples within diathesis stress. After all, they are that only. They're just examples of different types of diathesis and stress. So don't stray away from the main focus. For AO3, as always, my suggestion will be to really get into the top mark band. One study point should be there, supporting study point or contrasting study point. One point with the counterpoint, one strength or weakness with the counterpoint. And an easy way of going about it is, because we're going to include a study ternary at all in the 6 marker part, some evaluation of that itself could make for a point and counterpoint. And any two more points. Give a balance between strengths and weaknesses. So preferably have 2 strengths, 2 weaknesses. One very important thing which recently I'm noticing a lot while assessing papers, terminology many students assume is only required for AO1 part. It's equally required for AO3. Like when you see the mark band, they are not saying that terminology has to be used only for the AO1 section, and AO3 you can write casually. Throughout the answer, they expect you to use good terminology. So even while putting up AO3, make sure you're using good research related terms like, say, validity, reliability, relevant terms. For everything, don't use a common term like any strength or weakness is reliability. Use the correct research terms in the correct places. And of course, even in evaluation, whichever studies you're summarizing and all, use good terms for those. Total 4 points for evaluation, as I've suggested, to get into absolute 16 marks. Each point in Peel format or detailed. As I always mention, if you need to revise the Peel format or you need to see a full answer written in Peel format, like complete answer, there are many such videos on my channel or downloadable PDFs on my website. So you can take them from there. Okay, let's begin with AO1. As we go about, you'll understand better. First, to just give a one line into interactionist perspective, you could begin effectively with many explanations are available for schizophrenia. genetic, neural, family, environment related, and psychological like cognitive errors, etc. So today, researchers believe none can be taken in isolation to understand schizophrenia. Rather, combined approach should be taken. This combined approach is called the interactionist perspective of schizophrenia, and it is summarized or it is explained using the diathesis stress model. Then it becomes easy. Like from this point onwards, in fact, the answer is very structured. First, we begin with the general intro to what is interactionist approach, and then we just keep on explaining what is diathesis, giving examples, what is stress examples, and then summarizing the study. So I don't think from a structure point of view there is any issue in this answer, which is why it is easy. So to begin with diathesis, it is vulnerability to schizophrenia, which is typically assumed to come from genes. To support this, as I said, you do not need to get into okay, Gottesman, Shields found this, family studies found this. No, but you can give one example, strictly a 1-2 sentence example of, say, concordance rates have been established to be near about 50% in monozygotic twins, much less in dizygotic. You can give the percentage, suggesting that there is definitely genetic vulnerability. Like just to give concrete evidence to this point, in one sentence we mentioned this. And then to transition towards stress, like in diathesis stress, what is stress? Because the concordance is not 100%, definitely environmental factors must be contributing. So then we take it towards stress, which is seen under stress part of the diathesis stress model. When it comes to diathesis stress, again we should just define stress, that is exposure to like adverse environmental effects, environmental conditions, which add to the vulnerability to manifest schizophrenia. Again, to just substantiate the point, not to get into a separate discussion altogether of environmental factors, one simple example of a study in which, again, if you remember the name of the research, you can give. It was established that prenatal environment can result in schizophrenia. So, uh, during childbirth, if there is trauma caused to the fetus, like say for example oxygen supply is cut off or something, it results in much higher risk of schizophrenia. I think it was 2.37 times the risk compared to normal population, which it is less than 1%. uh, I could also say approximately 2% if I don't remember exactly right now. I'm writing 2.37, or you can just say many times higher than that of the normal population. So during childbirth, if there's trauma to the fetus, the risk of developing schizophrenia is 2.37 times greater than that to those children who don't face trauma. Always when you say something is many times higher, risk is high, make sure to indicate the comparison group also. With whom are we comparing and saying this? So with those children who are born with normal childbirth procedure with no complications. But of course, there had to be already some genetic vulnerability or brain deficits in the child, and then if this sort of trauma took place, then they develop schizophrenia. That is what was found in the study. So in the beginning already we have mentioned that environmental factors add to the vulnerability which is there from genes. So the study also indicated the same thing. There are other studies that you could give. Like I remember there is this meta-analytic study of urban environments in which they've established that those who live in urban environments, because of the stress, de-individuated nature of cities, and mainly that lack of social interaction and very fast-paced lifestyle with immense financial difficulties, people from urban areas are more likely to develop schizophrenia than those from rural areas. So definitely, instead of my example study, you could give something like that. Any study which is indicating environmental risk factors for schizophrenia, of course. But even if you're giving that study, the urban versus rural study, do make sure to specify that even in that study it was found not everyone who lives in urban areas develops schizophrenia, which is very commonsensical also. Not all of us living in cities are developing that condition. So definitely there has to be genetic risk, because whenever we introduce in diathesis stress, the uh, stress factors, the environmental factors, we say they add to vulnerability in the definition. So then, whichever study we give should also emphasize on that point. Now, why I haven't gone into the details of either diathesis or stress in terms of studies is because, like I told you, I want to summarize, in fact, one particular study which is done combining the diathesis stress model, which is the Tierney et al. So I've left my word count for that. It's a long study. There's a lot potentially that you can give, but of course AO1 is just for 6 marks. I've already covered a lot, so I'm not going to be able to give that much. So in that same format for which I had summarized the 4 marker, I just give the aim, procedure, results, conclusion of Tierney in 1-2 lines maybe for each section. Their aim was to see how genetic factors moderate susceptibility to environmental risks of adoptive family functioning. Particularly, that was the environmental risk they were looking at. So to really simplify the aim and put it, I would say to investigate genetic sorry moderation of adoptive family risk in creating schizophrenia through genetic factors. Then again, like I said, the procedure is long, but to put it very simply, they had this they had these hospital records from which they identified children who had been born to schizophrenic mothers, and they had the records of how many of them had been adopted and how many of them stayed with their biological mothers. They followed these children for like prospective study, longitudinal 12 years they followed them. That was like the median following which they did. So on an average a child was followed for 12 years, and they established whether the child developed schizophrenia or not eventually. They also did a follow up after 21 years for each child. They used very good assessment methods, like they used proper clinical tools to assess whether the child was having schizophrenia. Also, they controlled for the family, adoptive family environment through again one scale, the name of which I can't remember. Through that, they assessed whether the adoptive family environment could be considered as normal or not, so that they could rule out the possibility that schizophrenia had been developed because of the adoptive family environment. And of course, to enable them to see whether whatever the adoptive family environment was, it was adding up to the genetic risk or not. Now, like I told you, this is a lengthy procedure, so many things I've mentioned. Out of that, what would I give for a 6 marker in which I'm just covering this as one part? I would not give again the specific secondary data like how many twins were there, or how many years, how many records they looked into, nothing like that. If you remember the culture, I think it was a Finnish study, you can mention that. I would just say that like I told you, task is important. Here in these type of natural experiments, not from participants' point of view, they don't do anything as such in the study, but researchers' point of view, they do the assessment task. So always when you can't decide what's the secondary detail in a study and what's a primary detail, you can think about the task. The task is always primary. So I would say that researchers followed children born to mothers having Actually, it's not only schizophrenia, that's what I'm thinking. It's also any related psychotic disorder. So, schizophrenia or any disorder from the family of schizophrenia disorders. So, I would put it as schizophrenia or any related psychotic disorder who were either living with the mother or adopted away in the long term, like using a longitudinal plan or prospective plan, they followed them. And they also assessed the family, adoptive family environment using established clinical tools. So, out of all possibilities which I told you earlier of what could be covered in the procedure, this is all I'm covering because this is the task. This is the assessment which is done. It's the key focus. Now, coming to the result, what they found is that uh, again, I don't remember very exact numbers, but out of those who developed schizophrenia, out of the adopted children who developed schizophrenia, I think it was 14 children who had developed schizophrenia, out of which 11 were from mothers who were at a biological risk, means who had at some point in their life had a psychotic disorder. So if you remember that, definitely give it. Makes it very effective to put numbers like 14, 11 and all, or you can put it like I'm putting it, because right now I'm not very sure about the numbers. So who developed schizophrenia, vast majority had a mother with a psychotic risk. Like I could say psychotic prevalence, at some time in her life she had had a psychotic disorder. Here I'm writing roughly, as I've told you in the beginning, just an outline. If I would write it that time, I would write it properly. And very, very importantly, one more result which they found is, because this is about diathesis stress after all, it's not just about the mother having schizophrenia. If the adoptive family's environment was also stressful, in that case, that risk was much higher, meaning that in these 11 children, like 14 had developed schizophrenia, as we saw. In these 11, the adoptive family environment was very stressful, as they had assessed. So we can say amongst these children, adoptive family stress was assessed to be very high. Also, if you want, you can add it. Right now I'm not putting it for the sake of brevity, but that is also a relevant result, that those who had this genetic risk but they are like adoptive parents, had given them a protected and good healthy environment, it served as a protective factor. They did not develop schizophrenia, in fact. So again, even that substantiates diathesis stress, because both need to be in place for schizophrenia to be developed. If the diathesis is there, the mother is having the condition, psychotic disorder, birth mother is having it, but the adoptive family is giving a healthy environment. In that case, stress is missing, diathesis is there. So only that much is not enough to develop schizophrenia. So conclusion, of course, is very important. What we conclude from this study is, diathesis stress model is an accurate explanation of schizophrenia because the combination of both in this study, like linking back to the study, uh, that birth risk from the mother, inherited risk, plus adoptive family issue, stress in the adoptive family, created the highest chances of the child developing schizophrenia. I know many of y'all will find this AO1 is lengthy and there are too many figures or studies to remember, but the fact is that if you want to get full 16 out of 16, which many students come to me for, they're already doing well, but they want to get their A stars in psychology, then you do have to cover this way. If you compromise anywhere, like if you say, I cannot remember the ternary study, or means you of course don't have to give the ternary study, there could be some other study you've learned. So I don't remember any study that I can summarize here, or I just want to like roughly combine what I learned in genetic plus environmental. I don't really remember diathesis, so I just want to give a little bit from here and there. So if you're not going to be focused in your approach, if you're going to compromise on having to remember studies, like I told you, you don't even have to remember each and every detail. But if you feel even this much you cannot remember just the summary of it, then you are compromising on the marks. See, I'm not saying you can't write that or you can't score well even if you're taking that approach. You can, but then don't have the expectation that you'll get full 16 out of 16. So what I've written right now is from a full 16 marks point of view, like I want to get full 16, then you do have to put down these things. Now this was AO1. What can we write for AO3? Again, the structure I've already explained to you. Now I'll just make it more clear to you by actually writing it down. So as I had mentioned, the first evaluation point should ideally be a research study. I'm going to give that. One thing came to my mind when it comes to year 2 curriculum, like paper 3, for example. Yes, I do follow peel format while writing because that is what we are learning from year 1 and it is effective, no doubt. You can use it to get full 16 also. But just to bring to your notice that you don't have to give a peel format, especially for year 2. Sometimes it's more of discussion and evaluation rather than strengths and weaknesses. It's more of discussion rather than evaluation. So not necessarily you classify every point as a strength or weakness, which you have to do in peel. Like first you have to point out it's a strength or weakness. So you could just give it in terms of a discussion. Anyways, that's not my main focus right now, just telling you. So if you're not even strictly following a peel format, but your points include both context and reasoning, which is the purpose of using peel, that's fine. Even if you're not literally going by a peel format, but context is there, relevant examples, that's what I mean by context, and reasoning. Whatever you are explaining in the evaluation, you're able to show the reasoning of why you're discussing it in the context of the interactionist approach. That's fine. So I'm putting in the peel format, not compulsory. I would give a supporting research study as a strength. In my EO1, I have spoken about genetic risk and you know how that creates vulnerability. So I've spoken about diathesis basically. So there is a supporting study which indicates that yes, diathesis has to be there for someone to develop schizophrenia. So this was this study by Virdox et al. Again, too many possible studies are there. You could take any. And in fact, in their study, what they have shown is it is not necessary that the vulnerability be genetic. There can be many types of vulnerabilities that could result in schizophrenia, but yes, they do substantiate the point that diathesis or vulnerability has to be there. So they indicated that uh, other than genetics also, like they're not saying that genetics do not create vulnerability. They acknowledge that, but along with that, there can be other factors serving as diathesis. So we know when it comes to the peel format or just discussing some study, uh, we do need to indicate at least in a line what did they do, what was their procedure, and what were the results. That's the most important thing. These researchers, they compared individuals who had faced what we call as obstetric complications during birth. Obstetric complication just means at the time of childbirth, at the time of delivery, basically labor, there is some issue with the child being born. If for the sake of good terminology, you can remember this obstetric complications, that is good, or that much also we don't have to get into the technicalities of terminology. So even if you say something like prolonged labor issues, that's also fine. With those who had not faced such complications. And what they found is that amongst those who had faced such complications at the time of their childbirth, birth, later, when they became, at the time of their childbirth, I mean, is when they were born, not when they were giving birth to children. So if they had faced such complications when they were being born, that time, uh, like later when they came to their uh, late young ages or early middle ages, they were 4 times more likely to develop schizophrenia than those who had not faced such complications. Now, why is this a strength? Because it goes to support that schizophrenia does not come only from stress. First, a diathesis has to be there, vulnerability has to be there, then only it manifests. So, it supports the fact that only later life stress does not result in development of schizophrenia, which means that it increases the validity of the diathesis stress model. At least the diathesis part is supported by the study empirically. I had told you at least one of the points should have a counterpoint. That time I mentioned that ternary can be given a counterpoint, like whichever study we take. Even this one can be given, so I'm going to include in this. And later on also, even for ternary, like I said, at least one has to have a counterpoint. So there can be more than one which has. If you feel man's is becoming very long, you won't be able to write. That's why I'm pointing out that these are additional. So many counterpoints are not needed. I'm just giving you because right now I'm trying to show you the possibilities of writing the answer. So I keep giving suggestions. Your answer does not have to match exactly what I'm giving you. For this study, the counterpoint is these researchers have interpreted this as diathesis. So they are assuming when these children were born, they had complications that created a risk. Later in their life, they face some stress and so they develop schizophrenia. Not everyone agrees with this interpretation. So other researchers have criticized the interpretation. What they have suggested is, in fact, what these researchers have discovered is not a diathesis. Just because this is coming very early in life, they've assumed it's a diathesis. They believe it's the stress factor that is resulting in schizophrenia. So they have interpreted as stress, in fact, prenatal stress. And according to them, the vulnerability is coming from genetic issues. So the child who is having these birth complications, like when the child is born, is already having genetic issues, plus this prolonged labor is taking place. So that prolonged labor is becoming the stress rather than the diathesis for developing the disorder. Which does not mean that, 1 minute, I'll just write this. Which does not mean that these researchers are rejecting the diathesis stress model. We should be very clear on that. Just because there is some criticism of a study does not mean the entire theory is being negated. It's just that they are saying that in this study, accurate interpretation has not been done of what is diathesis and what is stress. We see, whenever we're writing an answer, this is something I've emphasized in the last video also, we have to keep relating back to the question. Our question is about interactionist approach. So we should not get lost into the thing of, okay, this was the study, then this was the criticism of the study. The evaluation is not about the studies for their own sake. It is about the interactionist approach. So it needs to, every point needs to keep going back to that. So there are already genetic complications which are creating the diathesis. Therefore, interactionist perspective, to link back, is accurate. But its accuracy subject to correct interpretation of what is the diathesis and what is stress. Or you can say correct distinction between the two. Okay, another point I would give about is the ternary study. If you have given something on urban environments, like I had suggested, that could have been your example under, uh, you know, the stress part. So there are studies about the urban environment also. Like I remember there is this study in which They found, I think it was again a meta-analytic study, definitely those living in urban areas were having much higher risk of developing schizophrenia than those in rural areas. So that is something, if you've given there, you could give its evaluation here in AO3 by suggesting that in urban areas there are too many factors which amount to stress, right from financial conditions to difficulty forming relationships to loneliness, isolation, to pollution and contamination in the environment, lack of privacy. So when we do a meta-analysis, um, the studies that have been included, which of these factors have been investigated by the studies, what is the range or the scope of the meta-analysis, that can greatly increase or decrease the validity of what is being proposed in the stress part of the model. So you can give something like that if you've taken that. Another question which arises is, do we always have to link what we have given in AO1 with AO3? No, not always, but I again feel that if you want to reach full 16 marks, there should be coherence in your answer. So I would go about evaluating that what I have mentioned in AO1, like the obstetric point I gave, because I mentioned that. If you have given urban point, you can take up that. That's fine. Okay, so my next evaluation point would be about ternary because I have taken that. First, I would give a strength of that study. The good thing, if you see, of that study is there is a prospective approach which has been used, and sorry, not prospective, longitudinal approach that has been used. Sorry, again, prospective and longitudinal approach. Also, very well established tools have been used to assess adoptive stress. Right, so considering all of this, like very good design, perspective rather than cross sectional, plus measuring adoptive stress with very good quality questionnaires, that really increases the validity of the study. So of course, first, just to complete this contextualization, I would say that uh, for a long term, children were followed. Like I said, if you remember the years, give it always. If you don't, I right now I remember, so I'll give it. Or you could just say very long term. And for the well established tools, I don't remember the name, but it was like a proper self report questionnaire, psychometric test rather, actually, which had been used in many studies previously, and it was known to be a reliable and valid tool of stress assessment in the environment. So all this increases the validity of the study. uh, Before I link and say validity, I would say that it eliminates bias in assessment of adoptive family stress because it's a reliable tool, like we saw. And the advantage of having longitudinal perspective rather than cross sectional study is, uh, in retrospect, there might be many factors which we might skip, which might be contributing to schizophrenia rather than genetics or the environment. But in longitudinal studies, we're able to keep track over time of how schizophrenia develops, eliminate any possible confounding factors because those will be visible to us, and also we're able to see any gradual development of the disorder. So helps to see gradual development of disorder, eliminating confounding variables on the way. There is a counterpoint to this, though their methods are very good. In fact, I did not mention ecological validity. It is very realistic what they have done. It's not a stimulated type of experiment. The counterpoint is that when we measure adoptive stress, we look at it very unidimensionally. Like if we take the tool which they've used for assessment, it looks at whether the family is creating stress for the child. But that gets complicated by the fact, as we've seen many times, that children also come with their own temperaments, especially a child who's having propensity for schizophrenia because their birth mother has it. When they come into an adoptive family, they're very likely to be a difficult child to deal with because of their genetic conditions. No doubt people develop schizophrenia when they're in their late 20s or early 30s, but the signs are seen from very early in their childhood. Some amount of aggression, stubbornness, lack of cooperation, those things are there very early on in the child. So those things can modulate how their adoptive family is treating them, which is something we are not accounting for when we are doing a unidimensional assessment of how the family is creating stress. So we can say assessment of adoptive stress does not account for contribution towards stress from an already vulnerable child. Now, what is the problem because of this? Like I said, we always have to link back to interactionist perspective. If this is the case, that the child themselves are creating stress in the family or they are provoking parents into creating stress, then the assumption that diathesis by itself, genetics by itself does not create schizophrenia and there has to be external stress to contribute to it might not be very accurate. So it can reduce the validity of the study and thereby the diathesis stress model, as I mentioned, diathesis might account for the full condition and stressors might not be playing a role. Okay, now those were the like key points. There's a supporting study also, and then there is evaluation of ternary which was given in AO1. What other evaluation points can be right? These I would consider as minor evaluation points, not that they are not important in scoring or not that we don't have to write them effectively, just that they are not the standard study points or the standard evaluating the study which is given in AO1 type of points. I know at this point many of you would find it excessive and you'd feel the length is too much, but if you want a full 16, this is the ideal approach for it. You can get a full 16 by writing 3 points also by not giving any supportive studies, but only very good students are able to achieve that. What I mean by that is those who are very clear in their answer writing patterns, who use very good terminology, they can do it. For others, the set formula or standardized way of earning a full 16 is what I'm giving right now. A standard point that I could give here is definitely practical implications for treatment, which is key when it comes to disorders. We need treatment for the condition. If we are saying that diathesis stress is there, then many potential applications are there. The most prominent one I would say is identifying the diathesis. Can help like if we can identify the diathesis, it can help to either eliminate it at an early stage or to prevent exposure to stress amongst those people who are having diathesis so that they don't develop schizophrenia. Here also there are studies, or you don't even need to quote the study, you could just give it as a direct example. There are some women who have cytomegalovirus. I'll just put it down. If these women like they already have cytomegalovirus, and sorry, they don't already have it during pregnancy. If they develop this condition, which is called cytomegalovirus, they are more likely to have a child with a risk for schizophrenia, like a high risk for schizophrenia. Now, if these women can be told early on, like they can be diagnosed early on that, okay, you have this condition, you're likely to have a child who's having a risk for schizophrenia, then they can take an informed decision to uh, undergo any possible treatment at that stage itself before the child can be born and the risk for schizophrenia goes on increasing. Some sort of treatment during pregnancy itself which can eliminate this virus. So, some sort of antiviral treatment can be taken just to like completely remove the diathesis itself. And if not possible, as we saw earlier, in that case at least then they can make sure once their child is born they can keep them protected from stressful environments as much as possible, because they know the risk is there. So they need not expose their children to the stress, like try their best not to expose them to stress which would actually manifest the disorder. So preferably some sort of treatment can be done at this stage. Okay, so in the explanation why is this a strength, I could explain that they could opt for uh, antiviral medicine during pregnancy to get rid of the diathesis, thereby like preventing the child from developing schizophrenia from subsequent exposure to stress. So definitely the link for this is high practical application. Finally, coming to uh, a weakness I would like to give, because I have given many weaknesses in the way of counterpoints as such, but to give a like proper weakness and to really balance on the strengths and weaknesses, many people have suggested that the diathesis stress model is not very appropriate for schizophrenia. Their criticism is coming from the fact that they just feel it's oversimplified and outdated. In what sense they mean it is oversimplified and outdated is oversimplified in the sense very few risk factors or vulnerabilities have been identified essentially, which are genetic vulnerabilities. And what has happened, also why it is outdated for the same reason, because these few genetic vulnerabilities have been identified, but over time it has come to be realized there are far too many genes which are playing a role in schizophrenia, up to 100 and something. Again, I don't remember the exact number, so I would say over time more than 100 candidate genes contributing to schizophrenia have been identified. Not only that, other factors which are also possible vulnerabilities beyond those simple genetics have also been identified. For example, the schizophrenogenic mother. The schizoprenogenic mother, as we have seen in the expressed emotions family explanation, family environment explanation, it is that mother who is um, very emotionally abusive towards the child and who keeps on blaming the child for all difficulties in her life, resulting in the child developing schizophrenia. Of course, double binding can also be suggested here, or any childhood trauma, anything like that can serve as a vulnerability factor. So what has happened? What is the issue? Again, it does not negate the diathesis stress model completely. It just goes to show that uh, it has been too simplistic, as we've mentioned in the beginning. It might be much more complex than what is proposed here. In the sense, we could say uh, that exclusive focus on and demarcation of biological being the diathesis and anything from the environment being the stress could not be the right approach. So, segregating genetic biological factors as being diathesis and environmental factors as being risks might be a too simplified or too reductionist view of a very complex disorder like schizophrenia. So, the models construct validity, or you could even say temporal validity, but I would say construct validity has become in question because of temporal issues. And there is a need for drastic revision to increase its validity. All right, so that would be my essay for interactionist approach. If you are struggling with your essays in any way, it would just indicate that you have not prepared your essay plan for all the topics, especially when it comes to topics like an interactionist approach. As I told you, the general tendency of students is to see it as, oh, it's some sort of, mishmash between what we've seen in the genetic explanation and the environmental explanation. I hope as you went through this answer with me, you realize that is not the case. It is an approach or perspective that stands its own ground. It's not just a mashup of two other explanations that are there. So don't take that approach in writing, you'd score very poorly. Make sure for all the main topics of schizophrenia, you have an essay plan in place, including the interactionist approach. If you have any doubts, any questions or comments about this video or requests for future videos, what you'd like to see in them, my plan as such is to start covering the 2025 paper answers for future students and for those who would like to repeat the exams. I do get many students who want to improve their grade by giving the exam again the next year. So for them, I would like to solve the 2025 papers. But if you have anything else that you would like to see on this channel, definitely you can leave the comments in the box below. Please do not contact me on my personal number or personal email ID for comments related to the videos that I'm posting here. I will not answer your questions there. Those numbers are only for booking classes or any other assignment or help related work for psychology. So I hope to see you soon in another video, which will not be a predicted paper, which will be some other type of video. All the best for your paper 3, which is coming on 9 June. This is the last that I have to offer in the predicted series. And see you very soon again. Goodbye.